Saline in Waltham. I worked at Marty's in Newton. A lot of people have heard of that anyway. And then a bunch of other places as well.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sorry to get you off guard.
Well, I can't get anything else. Thank you.
Is it opening?
Well, 5 minutes.
Do you have any other questions?
I don't know.
Okay. No other questions? Okay. So if there are no objections, I will take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the application for wine and malt beverages for Salinas' Cellar at 62 Main Street.
Second.
And make that unanimous action? Very good.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Let's try it.
Sandra said you may want a floor plan. I don't know, should I, tonight or maybe?
Well, I'll put that with the application for the BCC. We'll want it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a motion to approve a community host agreement. Gentlemen, you can come forward. Hi, how are you? So this is regarding Grow Right LLC, community host agreement for the cultivation of marijuana. All right. You may sit down. Yeah, sure. Yeah, very good. All right. Derek, let me just pass this on to you for a minute, if you could speak a little bit about the agreement.
Sure. As we all recall, both Young Kim and John Kim were before the board, I think back in August, July time period, I forget, to talk about their marijuana cultivation business that they hope to set up at 162 Milford Street called Grow Right LLC. Since that time, they've held a community meeting. I think we had one person attend the community meeting. It was held here in Town Hall, well advertised. I think it was how we advertised it in the town crier, at least they did. And then so those are the first two things they had to do prior to submitting their application to the Cannabis Control Commission, which will be the ultimate licensing authority as it relates to this business. But before they can do that, their last stop is to execute a community host agreement here with the town of Upton. So we've been working very closely for the past couple of months to try to negotiate terms. Our counsel, KP Law, has reviewed the contract that's in front of you this evening. They are satisfied with the language within that contract. As far as the terms of the agreement, Grow Right LLC has agreed to provide 3% of their gross sales to the town. They have agreed to provide an additional payment of $2 per square foot of their canopy space. And they have agreed to provide $1,000 each year to the police department for their operations, $1,000 each year to the fire department operations, $2,000 for a scholarship fund here in town, and then an additional $1,000 to a local charity. On top of that, you may recall Grow Right LLC had offered to provide up to 200, I'm going to call them, for lack of a better term, these hydroponic incubators to school students who may want to use this as a science project to learn how to grow vegetables and herbs and other things at their home. So that's all within the community host agreement, which we've agreed upon in premise, and it's before you this evening for your final approval.
Okay. I have read most of the agreement. It seems obviously very thorough. There's a lot of information in here. I don't have any further questions regarding the document. Brett, do you have any questions?
I don't. I appreciate folks that are trying to come and open new businesses in town. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah.
Very good. And Maureen, do you have any?
I'm quite satisfied with the agreement.
Satisfied? Okay. As am I. So hearing that, I will take a motion.
I move that we approve the host agreement for the, there it goes,
Grow Right LLC.
for the Grow Right LLC.
Second?
and make that unanimous action. Very good, gentlemen. Thank you and good luck. Best of luck. Any idea when you will hear from the Cannabis Commission?
So we're gonna start the application process, and it's gonna take up to 90 days probably, but, we gotta get all the site map plans and everything get ready before we submit the application, so we'll see. It's gonna take probably like 3 to 4 months. That's the max that we're targeting for.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Growing incubators might be good not only for the high school, but also BBT.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. They have something on a small scale. You would think that'd be great for different projects.
All right, Sandy.
Okay. So agenda item 4.2, we are going to pass over this, table this for this evening.
Yeah, we hope to table this for the December 17th meeting.
Okay. All right. So, agenda item 4.3, we have an application for the Capital Budget Committee. This is for Mr. Justin Pollard, I believe he's here this evening. Hi there, how are you? Good, how are you? Good. He's run over your application, obviously very thorough, you've got a lot of experience in this. Could you talk to us for just a minute? Tell us what interests you and...
Sure. So I moved in a month, it'll be 3 years ago, with my wife Kelly. We're down the road at Hazeltine, and I have a 10-year basically construction experience with Consigli. I've spoken with the Capital Budget Committee about joining the group. With my experience and kind of the upcoming range of long-term and short-term projects, I feel like my experience would be very beneficial to the committee, both as a young adult with a starting family and a long-term goal of sticking around here and making things better, but also with just experience with seeing projects from start to finish. And my projects have ranged from a Smithsonian museum to a ground-up 6-story apartment complex. So pretty wide range, small and large budgets, and just kind of feel like I'd be very applicable to the group. So looking forward to working with them.
Very good. Talk just for a minute about the Smithsonian. I saw that when I read the application. I thought that was very interesting. How did you come to be involved in
It's
it?
a really cool opportunity, and Consigli is sort of spreading its reach to all of the Atlantic region. But the first project in DC down there, which started in 2014, was the Renwick Art Gallery. So it was a 1.5-year project, $25 million, and they shut down the museum, and it was right on Pennsylvania Avenue, right next to the White House, and we renovated it, and we actually brought in all the artists and had them help them install all of their new exhibits. So it was a really cool project. But also, we kind of took apart the building and put it back together piece by piece, which was just another piece of really cool work. So, but yeah, that was a few years ago now. I've been in Boston the last 4 years. So,
Very good. Very interesting.
yeah.
Brett, do you have any questions?
I would just ask, clearly we're thrilled to have you offering to help out the town, there's no doubt about that. There are multiple boards and committees that are coming up, so there's the building committee that'll be coming up for the proposed community center.
Yeah.
So that's something that we'd also love to have your perspective on and express your interest in, if that's something you're interested in. So just keep in mind that there's multiple areas where your expertise can be utilized, and as much as you can support that's great. We also don't want you to overburden yourself, so that's the key thing, is figuring out where's the best use for your time, and that's my only thing, is I want to make sure that we're getting the most value out of your time, because
Yeah, I agree.
you've got a great skill set.
You can tell you're here to help, as you know. And, if it happens to be on the budget committee with some level of involvement with the building committee as well, I can do that.
Okay,
I don't think
yeah.
there'd be any, I don't know if there's conflict of interest or anything like that, but I'm willing to help whoever I can. So.
No, and I think that's sort of the key, is to try to find that balance, but that's great.
Yeah.
Probably more of a time component really is how much time would you need to spend the capital budget versus the
Exactly.
building committee. As Brett had mentioned, where would your skills be best used. But in any event, it's great to have you step forward, thank you, sure.
Yep.
I'm sure your experience will be welcomed by the capital budget committee or any board or building committee that you might have in mind to do.
Great, very good. So I think we've got that. I'll take a motion to appoint Mr. Pollard.
I would move to appoint Mr. Powell to the capital budget committee.
Second.
And make that unanimous action. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for your
See you.
Stepping forward. Okay. Now, that was a good segue to,
You think that was for a 3-year term?
I believe it.
yes. A 3-year term. Right, Maureen?
Yes.
All right. So that leads us to discussion item 432, discussion and formation of a building committee. By our town bylaw, we have to form a building committee in preparation for the proposed, I want to say feasibility, council aging, community center, and library. So, Derek, again, I'm going to pass this over to you. If you could talk a little bit about the building committee, a little bit about the bylaw, and then we'll deliberate what we think as far as how many board members.
Sure. So in accordance with the general bylaws, it is required that any time there's been a construction approved or a building construction approved at town meeting, a building committee then needs to be appointed. And as you can tell from the bylaws, how are these individuals appointed? So the moderator will have a vote. The Board of Selectmen collectively have a vote, and then the department head, which is something we'll have to figure out, will have a vote as well. So as we know, this is a joint building, so if this was just the fire department, this would be the fire chief, but given the fact that this is a joint building between the library and the senior center, we're going to have to work with Matt and with Janice to determine their single vote as well. And as you have read with the bylaw, typically we'd like to see folks that have the types of background that Justin just described, architecture background, construction background, engineering background, so individuals who are in that line of work and have that expertise. And, quite frankly, there's a lot of talent in this community, and I think we should be able to draw upon that talent. In a lot of communities, these building committees are standing committees, like Hopkinton, Plymouth, and I know Northbridge, they have a standing building committee that they're always in some phase of either doing conceptual reviews or managing an existing construction project that they're always appointed. But I think in our case, we have this one project, and if we have potential projects down the road, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. What will this specific building committee be tasked with? So as we recall, we had conceptuals that were completed for the 8 Grove Street site, and then we had more of a layout of the new site, which is going to be located over at the municipal parking lot next to the VFW. So the building committee, their first task at hand is, one, to hire the owner's project manager. So you can't have a project unless you have an OPM on board. So that's going to be their first task at hand. We would expect that to take place, and I would say mid to late January. Once the OPM is on board, the building committee would work with the OPM to then hire an architect to complete the conceptual design, then move on to schematic designs. And as we all remember, the article, the motion within the article is very specific, that it required the building committee to stop at the end of the schematic designs and then meet with the finance committee, meet with the capital budget committee, and then make a final recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen and as to determine whether or not we're going to move forward to construction documents. Assuming we move forward to construction documents, the building committee would then go ahead, work with the OPM to get the construction documents ready for town meeting. Clearly, May, based upon what I just described, May is certainly, there's no way we can meet that timeline. At the earliest, we think we can meet a November town meeting to go and request an appropriation for debt exclusion. assuming debt exclusion does get passed, then the building committee would then go ahead, work with the OPM, and manage the construction phases of the project upon completion.
Okay. Very good. Any comments or questions, Maureen or Brett?
I think it's pretty straightforward.
So how many people would typically be on it? I see that there's, different appointments that can be made, so what have we done in the past, or how do they get added if there's more than?
Within the bylaw,
Within the bylaw.
the bylaw says this building committee should include 5 members who have expertise in architecture, construction, accounting, so on and so forth. So it doesn't say no more than 5, no less than 5, it just says should include 5 members.
I was thinking that 7 would be a good number for the committee. I think we can get that type of commitment. I think we have plenty of skilled people that will step forward. Be a little bit easier to, I'm thinking it'll be easier to have a quorum at 7. Well, what are your thoughts?
I would go along with 7.
Okay.
That should be sufficient.
And it's probably a little premature, but it will be another discussion we'll have to have, which is to actually make sure we have all the candidates that are available to us, and we would need to vote. We would have to have the moderator, and of course, Matthew and Janice here as well. It's another topic, I guess, a little later in the program. We'll have to talk about how you two can split or combine your vote. But if that's amicable to all, I would take a motion for 7 unless you have a different idea.
Yeah, the only question I guess I would have is, if we had 7 people, it's like I'd rather have 5 good people than 7 less good people. So I think if you've got 5 of the right people with the right level of commitment and expertise, then that just saves time, right? The more people that you have on any of these boards or committees, the more time gets spent sort of going around in circles. But I'm totally fine with 7 as long as we can get 7 good people that aren't going to waste a lot of time, of their own time.
Right. I mean, the description, the bylaw is pretty
Straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward,
Right.
and it also puts a lot of burden on the applicant.
Yeah.
As far as, again, let's
expertise
just
and all
say,
that, yeah.
let's say someone like myself wanted to serve, I really don't have the qualifications according to, the particular bylaw. I agree with what you're saying, but I feel like this particular project, a big project, in
Yeah.
the past, we've had these for the schools.
Yeah.
And I think we've
That's what I was-
always been able to get 7.
I was going to say, that's a good question. How many have been on, do we know how many? She's back there.
I don't know if Kelly has any,
Well, Bill, maybe? Bill?
Kelly, do you have them?
Get caught up in the building department for the renovation, I think we started with 7, maybe dropped down to 5, and then came, so depending on how
in that
long
range,
the project goes,
Yeah.
can depend on how much time people can devote to it.
That's the thing.
So that, I think the building committee would be very lucky to start with 7 and end with 7.
Yeah.
Because it can be a
Yeah.
commitment. So that's what I would recommend, is
Yeah.
look for as many people as the
Yeah.
expertise that's out there that want to volunteer
Yeah.
their time,
Yeah.
and move it accordingly as
Yeah.
the project moves forward.
Okay.
Yeah, and Steve, Maureen, I would agree with you. Certainly, that's a great, right, like, that's a great point you guys are making, because people will have to cycle off. I was sort of thinking of the conversations, but in terms of continuity, you'd rather have somebody just cycle off and have 6 people there that know what's going on and bring sort of a new person on versus if 5 people leave and 1 person, or 5 people are on it and 1 person leaves,
Right.
that's harder to
Right.
fill.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's also an interesting description in there too, it talks about the accounting.
Yeah.
So, that could be a tricky one to actually fill.
Yeah.
But again, I like 7 to start.
7's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So if that's, we're in agreement, I will take a motion.
I'll move that we appoint 7 qualified applicants to the building committee for the community center.
Second?
Make that unanimous action. I think we want to get the word form that committee? Something
Form
like
the
that?
committee, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. So, we're opening it today for applicants. As I described the election process, because it seems like it's going to take some time, so would it make sense to hold the election on our first meeting in January, January 7th, for this committee?
I'm actually thinking, because of the holidays, that may be too soon. I know we don't want the committee getting too late of a start, but I just wonder if we'll have, all of our ducks in a row, so to say, by that point in time.
When would we be able to get the applications out?
We will announce it first thing tomorrow morning.
Right. And they'll be available, applications?
Yeah, they're online. Folks can just go online, fill out an application, and so we'll put it on our website, put it on social media. So it's a town crier, see if they can put something in there, next newspaper. So, the great thing with the town crier is that it goes to every household. So it hits everywhere.
Yeah.
I would just like to add, at the last feasibility meeting that we had, and I know no one can hear me because I'm recording this. The last feasibility, we did discuss that the feasibility would continue, and I know that's your next topic, but we would start working on the RFP for the OPM and maybe the architect, so when the building committee was ready to go, they could review it and almost issue it.
Right.
So almost like to keep things moving, and Matthew and Greg, am I correct on that?
Yes.
Keep things moving, yeah. Just so you guys are aware of the last discussion we had.
Okay, great. We'll pick up the next discussion item, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit.
Maybe we could just wait and see how many applications we get before January 7th, and if we've got 3, then obviously we'll kick it off. If we've got 12, then we're probably in good shape. I don't know, it just,
We'd be in good shape for 7th if we had.
I agree,
It'd be
totally.
the best thing to get it out now
Right.
and see how many applications we can get.
Yeah, I guess we could tentatively put it on the agenda for January 7th,
We'll see what we get for applicants.
and we'll see what we'll see what we get for applicants. Okay.
Sounds good.
Great day in U.S. history, January 7th, I might add. It'll be my birthday, of course.
I ask you that.
we'll get a cake for you.
Outstanding. Returning 40 for the 14th year in a row. All right. Okay. So next item is discuss the formation of Community Center Committee, aka Feasibility Committee, which I think we also had used the word steering committee. I'll throw out that I was at a meeting last Tuesday. Gentlemen, you can feel free to come forward, or if you'd like to stay where you are, whatever you're most comfortable with. Talk a little bit about where we're at, some of these topics. Yes.
Do you want us to dive in, or did you want to say anything else before we?
No, I think I was just going to say, for the record, Matthew and Bill Taylor are here to join us. Go ahead, you can jump right in.
All right, so we have an existing group called the Community Center Feasibility Committee, and that group is preparing to hand off the project to the building committee. And we had 2 thoughts. One was that a number of people on that committee would still like to contribute to the project, but don't necessarily have some of the construction qualifications you just talked about. And the second thought is that there's a lot of supporting tasks that need to be completed to move this project along that don't necessarily need to be done by the building committee. So we'd like to maintain the continuity of the people that are on the current feasibility committee and either rename the group or create a new group. And we came up with the name of the Community Center Steering Committee. And this group would be responsible for more operational planning, talking about the services, how are the multiple departments going to combine, what exactly will be offered in the new building, how it will be managed, and then could also do a lot of the outreach and publicity that needs to be done, going out to other community groups to get feedback, making sure the community stays informed of everything that's going on, and could also be the liaison between the building committee and the library trustees and the council on aging, because the steering committee will have members that are trustees that probably would not qualify on the building committee. So that was our thought, that these two groups, there's enough work to be done, and there's an easy way to delineate what tasks are building committee tasks and what tasks are sort of more soft project responsibilities that the steering committee would do. So we think there's a good reason for having both, and it would get more people involved in the project. And the current feasibility committee has 5 members. 3 of them have indicated they wish to continue on the steering committee. So we may have some openings for additional people to join on if you want to keep the number at 5. And they also drafted a document which would be a new charge to the committee. So this committee would be appointed by the selectmen, just like you guys appoint numerous other committees, and they need to have a charge. It's really from the selectmen to them, but they've drafted a document that they would be happy to accept if you issue it to them. And we can discuss that in any level of detail that you want, but that's where we are at this point.
Okay. May I, for one, believe it would be much easier. I know that there are a majority of the committee that would like to continue to serve, so I'm of the opinion that we would keep the committee intact, rename the committee, again, steering committee. I think we have 1 or possibly 2 members that may want to step away from the committee. So I think that would make the most sense to me. As far as a new charge and a new mission statement, I know I've had a chance to look at it, but I know my colleagues probably have not. So we may want to take that up at a future meeting to approve that particular document. Again, only because I don't think my colleagues have seen it yet. But does anybody have any questions or input as far as, would you like to dissolve and reconstruct a new committee, or would you like to just rename the committee that we have?
I, for one, would just rename the committee that we have,
Okay.
okay?
And keep it at 5 members?
5 members.
Okay.
I think it's just semantics, right? There's no real impact to renaming versus...
No.
Okay. So that doesn't matter. What I'm thinking about is the relationship between the building committee and this working group, or this steering committee, because I agree, clearly there's enough work to be done. There's a lot of things that will need to get done that are specific to the uses that will be occurring in the community center. So, you know, that's evident. There's a lot of work to be done other than just building a building. But I don't know how these types of groups typically work together in other locations. You know, again, I'm sort of new to this kind of thing, so I don't know
Would that be addressed in the mission statement of what the role of the committee would be?
So the role of the steering committee is set out in the mission statement. I don't think we talked specifically about the relationship between the building committee and the steering committee. My personal thoughts would be that the steering committee is very definitely a recommending body. It's looking at information, getting feedback, and making recommendations to the governing bodies. And the governing bodies are the selectmen, the board of trustees, council on aging is also a recommending body, but we can refer to them. And the building committee has some specific, not powers, but responsibilities in the bylaws. So I see the building committee as more of a decision-making body. I think that ultimately they probably recommend to the selectmen themselves, but the steering committee definitely would recommend things to the building committee. So the steering committee might say, you know, story time or Tai Chi classes are a really important service that we want to offer. Here's the sort of space we would need to do that. They tell that to the building committee, and then the building committee takes that service need and translates it into, okay, you're actually going to have so many square feet in this area in this configuration. Does that kind of address your question?
Yeah, and I'm also asking like how it's typically done, right? So we're not the first town to have a building committee that needs to build something with some external interests that need to participate, right? Because it's like you could also say, the building committee is responsible for soliciting the input from interested parties. So they would say, all right, we're going to have a meeting tonight to meet with the Council on Aging about their needs. We're going to have a meeting tonight to meet with the Library of Trustees on their needs, and they pull together all the requirements, and then the building committee's job is to go out and solicit this information, and that way they sort of get what they need when they need it, and we're not having this sort of other administrative ambiguous layer that's out there with no real authority to do anything. I wondered how it worked in other places.
Yeah, I think, definitely in other places, the building committee would work with that specific department to resolve those issues, to understand what are the needs, like, if we were picking Northbridge DPW, which they just went through, the building committee would meet with the DPW director, meet with their engineering firm, and go through that entire process to get a better sense of what are the needs, what are the service demands, what are the equipment listing look like, so that they can build out that space properly. So, Matt touched upon it, that, I look at this committee more as providing that type of technical advice, saying, these are the things that we need to accomplish if we're going to do this the correct way. These are our space needs for these types of services. In this case, the building committee, they've already got a head start, because a lot of this work's already been accomplished. And so I think now it really gets down to looking at the space the new space we've identified, and trying to configure that footprint with the conceptual plan, which we haven't completed yet. So, again, I would say that I would look at this committee more providing technical advice during the conceptual design phase. After the conceptual design phase, I think they would be off on their own, doing their own thing, looking at a few other items, like they listed in their document, looking at the Milton Rustine building and the stained glass window. How can they incorporate that into the building design, and those types of things. But it's clearly, just so I'm clear, the building committee, they're taking the leadership role on what this final product is going to look like.
Because the building committee really has to also stay within the parameters of the budget. So that's another kind of important task there, that accounting component of the building committee. So I look at that as one side of the equation. The other thing that I look at, this particular project is a little different. If it were a DPW building or a police station or a fire station, I don't think there would be any need for a steering committee. But where this particular project, that's, more cut and dry. This particular project, certainly there's a lot of different entities, a lot of different stakeholders, so I think it would be important. And again, a lot of hard work has been done by the members of the committee.
Right, and we built the fire station 20 years ago, so that building committee certainly met with the fire chief, back then the board of fire engineers, to determine, what's their future growth look like in order to design the building that we have today. I'd have to look at that building committee, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was somebody with a fire background to help guide the building committee and to sit on that committee as well.
Right. I think the tricky thing, as you said, Brett, is really going to be trying to figure out the organizational chart, and also if there is something that's a discrepancy, is, ultimately who would have the final authority. If there is some sort of a give and take. I think that's something that we're going to have to probably discuss that maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
unless you have a problem.
I would think either way, the building committee sort of runs the show, right? And it's a question of where do they get their input, and I'm a fan of streamlining government and sort of keeping government as small as it can and limiting the bureaucracy, which sounds a little theoretical when we're in that too. When we're in a local environment, right, obviously we respect all the work that people do, and we have a lot of volunteers that are spending a lot of time, effort, and energy on these things, right? But I look at it from an org design perspective, and what we're talking about is saying, we've got library trustees, we've got a council on aging, they both have groups of people that are supporting each of those, and we know we've got to have a building committee. So right there, you've got three organizations that are working together, three groups of people working together. The building committee can have the library trustees and the council on aging sort of feeding them the information they need. And what we're talking about is creating a steering committee to stand between the library trustees and the council on aging and the building committee. So to me, that feels like an extra layer of abstraction where you run the risk of things getting confounded or conflated. So, you know, that's just my experience with org design, but again, I don't want to disrespect all the work that people have done, and I recognize that, and if people want to keep spending time doing that, then as long as we know the building committee is the one making the decisions, and I think that's fine. Unless some of these people want to get on some other committee where they can spend their time, but
Have those.
right? I mean, so there's a lot to be done around town, that's my only thought. We want to make sure we're using people's time in the most effective way.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Well, the project manager will keep them within the budget, or he isn't doing his job. And ultimately, it is the building committee that makes the decisions. But the steering committee, we've used steering committees on projects that we've had, and they were very helpful. Some of them would get upset, but in the long run, they worked very well with the building committee.
They have, good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really what I was asking too about. It's like sort of people's firsthand experience with these kinds of things. So you've seen that work effectively in
Very
other
effective.
projects?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good. Anything interesting that would jump out, any one particular instance that you would say it really paid to have the committee in place?
The $34.7 million high school we built back in 1996. It went very well.
Yeah. And the steering committee played a key role in
It
that
played a key
project.
role, but we had a very strong building committee too,
Yeah.
that were very intense on the way things should be.
Yeah.
And when the steering committee would question that, they would give the reasons why it has to be done this way,
Yeah.
and and why they want to do it that way.
Good.
That would benefit the town.
Yeah. Great. Good. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see that side of the argument, and
Yeah, no.
I'm another one, I don't like to see layers of, I feel like it's insulation to productivity. You know, you just get too many layers. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I guess if that becomes the case,
Yeah, we can watch it.
And I think it's a big project.
It's a big,
It's a
it's
very
a big
big
important
project.
project, so I'd
Yes.
rather have more engagement than less, for sure.
Right.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And thoughts on, we're good with the thoughts on just renaming the committee?
Totally.
Okay,
I'm totally good with that.
all right.
Yep.
So I would recommend that we take care of that portion of this tonight, and then I would ask if you could forward the document that you have. We can preview and read that, and perhaps at our next meeting, then we could accept that mission statement, if that is the charge or mission statement for the renamed, for the renamed committee.
Absolutely.
And it'll be the Community Center Steering Committee, is that what we're calling it?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
We've gone through so many variations of names, trying to get something that captures the project but isn't too unwieldy. But the other comment I wanted to make, if I could, is, so we do anticipate having 2 openings on the steering committee. We'd like it if that could be advertised sort of simultaneously with the building committee. And one thing we did talk about at the last feasibility committee is we would love to have someone connected to the VFW or a VFW member, because this project is a neighbor, there are abutters, we'd love to get their input at this level on the steering committee. So if anyone has a connection to the VFW and is interested in serving on the steering committee, that is some input we'd love to get.
We can talk to Sean Craig, he's the commander over there, and see if he has somebody or knows somebody that could help or would be interested. I mean, minimally, I'm sure they would come to meetings, and so if you said, hey, we're going to put the VFW discussion on the agenda, can you come to a steering committee? And discuss with us XYZ thing, so.
Or we could
if not, sure, if not a full presentation, or if not a full participant, then definitely that linkage is important. That's a good call out, for sure.
Right, it would be nice if one of their members could
Yeah.
actually serve on the committee. but-
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm not
That's a
sure.
really good idea.
I'm not sure how we could reach out to them other than through Sean.
I think Sean will help.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. All right.
Very good.
So I make a motion that we change the name of the feasibility committee to the Community Center Steering Committee.
I'll second.
Make that unanimous action? Very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew, I guess, and just one other quick question, when we do come around to actually voting on, this is, I guess, going back a topic here, when we go back to voting on the building committee members, you and Janice will be splitting a vote on that? Is that how that's understood?
Yes, and I've had a couple discussions with Janice. I think it should work the same, as the selectmen have a collective vote, the department head should have a collective vote. Since there's two of us, I think it would basically mean we would both have to say yes. If either one of us cast a no vote, that would be a no vote from the department heads. If that makes sense.
Very good.
All right.
That works for me anyways. All right. Thank you. Okay. So next, we have a request, there's a request put forward to the board for myself to be a member of the collective bargaining representative for Blackstone Valley Tech. That invitation was extended to me by Dr. Fitzpatrick. There's a letter actually that was drafted. I think you folks got a copy of that. So any questions, comments, or objections?
Nope, been there, done that.
Is that
Several
something-
times.
I was going to say, do you have experience with those kinds of things? I know that some towns have the town manager do that or play that role, so I don't know have you guys have thought about that or what your thoughts are? I mean, I don't.
According to, actually, according to the letter, Dr. Fitzpatrick still needs to send that out, send an invitation to other boards, making sure that nobody else would have an objection to all surrounding towns.
To the
all-
surrounding towns,
Yeah, the
correct.
surrounding towns that are participators in BVT, if anybody would have
Because
an
we
objection.
host the school, it generally falls upon the chairman of the board of selectmen of the town.
Right, yeah. So if there are,
I'm just reading the letter, okay.
yeah.
Great.
I thought it was an interesting offer. I'm happy to serve the school, so.
I don't think you get a vote, though. Just saying.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
All right, I will take a motion.
I move that we appoint Steve Metallion to the collective bargaining, as collective bargaining representative to BVT.
Second.
Make that unanimous action. Very good, thank you. Next, we have to discuss the dissolution of the e-voting committee. So, of course, we formed a committee, investigate the pros and cons of electronic voting. That was brought forward at the special town meeting back in November. It was unfavorable. The taxpayer voted against that bylaw change. So the question now is, should we dissolve the committee? Should we keep the committee intact? At any point in the future, it didn't, to me anyways, it did not, I didn't feel like there was a lot of support with the residents that were in attendance. It sounded like there may be some support for perhaps a trial, electronic voting trial run, so to say, whereby the equipment could be borrowed from a vendor. But I think that's at some point in the future, maybe a year or two down the road.
Right, and the trial is, you'd have to have the electronic voting, but you'd also have the standard voting too. So you'd be doing the same thing twice, which would take up a lot of time at town meeting. So I wouldn't support,
A trial.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to, I mean, my view on it is sort of, we had a notion that people were asking for this. Certainly was something that I supported. We put it before the voters, and it clearly there wasn't, resounding support for electronic voting. So we, in my view, we brought it to town meeting, and it didn't pass because for various reasons. I mean, there were semantics in there, whether it was the bylaw or the trying or the actual vote, right? But if people were clearly in favor of electronic voting, they would have passed the warrant, the article. So the fact that they didn't indicates to me that, now isn't the time for electronic voting in Upton, and I think we can always revisit that, if we hear something different, or if somebody comes back in a few years and says, hey, we know we've got a groundswell of community support for this, great, then we can reevaluate it, but I think for now, we gave it a shot and asked the town what they thought, and they told us. So I'm totally comfortable with calling it.
Okay. So based on that, we would dissolve the committee?
Yes.
And just, as far as ever a trial run for an electronic voting, do you see that as 3 to 5 years in the future?
I mean, I would only do it in response to a groundswell of community support.
And maybe they could present it in a different way, or have a financial plan for it, and bite the bullet and do it paying for it, rather than go to these trials. And, I mean, that's very time-consuming, because you have to do it both ways. And then if it gets called for a standing vote, you gotta wait for that.
So you think on a trial run, you couldn't actually use just the electronic voting?
No, it's not allowed.
I mean, I totally hear that, right? But I think that what you're talking about is a sea change in how we manage town meeting. So if it means that one town meeting's going to be a little kludgy because we have to do an electronic and a standing vote or whatever it looks like you're going to have to pay a price if you want to make a shift from 200 years of how we've done it to, the next 200 years of how we do it. So, but I mean, that said, I totally agree with you. Like, the intent of this is to make things more efficient, and, doing a trial run clearly doesn't do that. And I think, to your point, if there was some other way for us to ask the community if they supported something like this, then we should do it outside of town meeting, whether it's a survey or some way to get the community pulse, or have, like I said, if there's some kind of groundswell, there's some champion for this that comes through and says, hey, we're going to get 35 or 40 people to show up to town meeting because we think this is really important, then great. Like I said, it's great. Like, I support it. I think other people on the board may have supported it.
Yes, I did. I did as well.
So I mean, and that's part of why we put it out there. But
it just goes to show you, right? You feel like there's a lot of support for it. You hear it, but ultimately, it just wasn't there.
Town meeting makes a decision, and I think they did in this case, so.
Yeah.
And I think they should have the right to make the decision.
Yeah.
Whether we agree with it or we
And
don't
we should
agree with
respect
it.
that, exactly, which we do. Yeah, no, agreed. Good.
Okay. Well, hearing that, I would think that, it would be a good idea then to dissolve the committee.
Yes.
Agreed. I make a motion that we dissolve the electronic voting committee.
Second?
And make that unanimous action? Very good. All right. On to discussion item 4.4. Discuss road race applications. So, we have an application for the Spooky Run 2020. This is, I believe it's the Mendon Upton Teachers Union puts this on?
Education Foundation.
Education Foundation. All right. My computer went blank, so I do not have the application in front of me.
Mine went blank.
Yeah, I don't know if the,
I have it, but-
server out by any chance?
No, I have wireless.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
I've got it.
Your iPads need to be updated.
Brett, if you could please read us the particulars of the...
I sure will.
of the road race. I know this is an event that happens every year. I think it's been 10 years or more.
Yeah, so this is the Mendon Upton Educational Foundation. The location is, it starts at Nipmuc Regional High School, Pleasant Street to Station to Grove to Mendon to Pleasant to Nipmuc. October 25th, 2020 at 10 a.m. About 175 to 200 people will be participating. They'll have the police and EMS on site to keep residents safe, and there will be volunteers that sweep up in the route and clean all signage and debris at the conclusion of the race.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good. Yeah. No objections. This is a good event. It's well-run every year.
Now, is this
it's clearly well-planned.
no procrastination there? Are we talking 2 events, a spooky run and the harvest ride?
They're 2 different applications, yeah, the one I just read is the spooky run.
I would make a motion to approve the application for the spooky run.
Second?
We'll make that unanimous action.
Do you want something a little bit bigger to read?
No, I can read this just fine. Taking the whole meeting on the cell phone. Yeah, we got it. Better than these computers and gadgets over there, just use your cell phone, come on.
I have the agenda, but I can't open the attachment.
Let me see if I can open it now.
Okay.
So the next,
Harvest ride.
Yes, maybe new iPad.
so this is the Harvest Ride. The application is Mark Walter, and he's on behalf of the Mark Carter Lisnow Respite Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ride begins and ends at Elmwood School in Hopkinton. See attached, there's a route. The event date is Saturday, September 26th of 2020. The cyclists will be riding through Upton from approximately 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., and the map is attached. There'll be 27, 50, and 100-mile ride options. And 10 miles of Upton roads will be part of the event. Cyclists will be instructed to ride single file except when passing and to obey the rules of the road. Cyclists will ride to the right of the road to allow cars to pass. There are going to be aid stations set up along the route. They're not sure yet, though, but there may not be set up in the town of Upton, so it depends on the routes that get finalized. They're going to be marked to guide cyclists with spray, the chalk and paper arrow stickers on the ground. The markers are biodegradable and will wash away with a few days or a couple weeks. They'll put up signage that will be removed within 48 hours of the event. And they have, there's a liability disclaimer on here. And it is a long route, according to this map.
Okay, so there's a bicycle road race, and the date on that, one more time, please?
Whoops. September 29th.
September 20th.
26.
Oops, sorry, 26th.
September 26th. All right. And Derek, have we done this one in the past? Do you recall?
I believe we have. We haven't done this one?
I think so.
That we have done this particular one.
You don't
You
recall?
don't think we have?
I don't.
That's right.
Did
We have to check.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, if we have done it, I think there's obviously precedent, so it would be fine to do. If we haven't, I would wonder if we'd want to ask Chief Bradley about it from a traffic perspective. I don't know if there have been other bike races through town or what the implications are. If he would have any requirements or anything like that. I haven't, since I've been here, I don't think I've been asked to approve a cyclist race going through town.
I mean, they come down West River Street, but I don't know what the route is that this one would be taking.
Yeah.
And we've had the road races come through also on West River Street and headed out to Mendon and...
Yeah, I've seen them come through
Yeah,
town, but I've
yeah.
never,
I don't know who they are or...
Right, I don't think we're the hosting community, though. I don't
Exactly.
recall us, so...
We're not.
right, those ones coming through town. Maybe they've just never asked us before.
Public safety has signed off on both races.
They have, okay, I didn't,
Okay.
It says cyclists enter Upton along Whitewood Road in Milford and continue on East Street in Upton, then turn left onto Pond, then turn left onto Fisk Mill Road and ride back into Milford. Cyclists return to Upton along Route 140 and then turn left onto Chestnut, right onto Mendon, left onto Pleasant, right onto Glen Ave, right onto Main Street, then make an immediate left onto Mechanic, right onto North, left onto Westboro Road, then turn right onto Park Road, Southboro Road, and ride back into Hopkinton.
So there's quite a bit of, yeah, okay. Is there any financial consideration paid to the department for providing the detail officers?
They would have to pay the detail, absolutely.
They do, okay.
And who did you say approved it? I don't see it in here.
It's not on this one, I have the original. Usually when I upload it, they haven't gotten the approval, so
Oh.
I have a hard copy of
But,
the,
okay, so we did get the public safety approval
Yes.
from Chief Bradley and,
yes.
Okay.
You don't have it on here.
okay, perfect, no, that was my question. If we've got it, then I'm good. Okay.
Oh, great.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all I was looking for.
Yeah, on both races, they have signed up. In the state annual event on the other one, we'll work with applicant for traffic safety, so they work with the groups,
Okay.
fire and police,
Yeah. There's quite
and
a-
DPW.
Right, there's quite a bit of roadway being used there, coming down 140 on the Chestnut. Yeah, it's quite a bit.
So I make a motion to approve the road race application for the ride on November 26th, or September 26th, 2020, the Harvest Ride.
I'll second.
Make that unanimous action? Okay. Okay. So now we have licensing. Motion to approve annual renewal of licenses.
Yes.
Okay, so we do this each year. There are, on this particular evening, we have used car dealers licenses, we have liquor licenses, and we also have our common vicular licenses. I'm a used car dealer, so I cannot sit in for the Class 2 portion of this, so I will recuse myself.
All right,
Pass this off to you, Brett.
we got it from here. We'll holler when we're done.
All right. Save you a few steps.
Okay, so these are the Class 2 licenses. Do we want to go through each one of these and approve them, or we'll read the list, Maureen, whatever you're comfortable with? I was thinking we could just read the list and
Just
approve
read
them
the
in
list
bulk.
because they're all the same.
Yeah, okay, great. So do you want to make a motion on these?
I move that we approve Gasco Wheels, Lakeside Machine Incorporated, Battalion Motors, McHugh Sales, MGM Auto, Moots Automotive Incorporated, Nala Equipment Corporation, Patrick Davidson, Precision Auto Center, Upton Truck and Auto, Upton Foreign Auto Service, Upton Getty Incorporated, Wilson Tire and Auto Incorporated.
Second?
Contingent upon the colored squares, they're due. It's
Or
not
contingent upon meeting all requirements.
contingent upon meeting all the requirements. Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I guess I won't holler.
I need that contingency.
Yes.
So I won't hand them the license.
Because we got a lot of color in here, there, Sandy.
Well, those just haven't been done yet because code's so busy
No.
doing inspect.
That was quick.
So they had until the 31st.
Yeah, and they said they'd do it next week.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we are back for liquor licenses?
Yes.
All right. So, and again, Sandra, everything, applications, everything looks good on these?
Yes, what's in yellow is outstanding, and
What's
generally,
in
if
red?
you just make the motion contingent upon meeting all requirements.
Okay, I'll just quickly read off the names of the businesses. Country Club Super, Susma Corp., which is Colonial Liquors, KCLC, which is Rose Garden, Auto Amusement Coin Op. Okay, Liquor Plus, Nipmuc Rod and Gun Club, Red Rock Grill and Bar, and KV Holdings, which is 118 Wine, Kitchen and Spirits.
I make a motion to approve the aforementioned liquor license contingent on payment or written agreement regarding any outstanding tax certification or fees or funds due to the town.
Yes, I second.
Yep. And you can make that unanimous action? Very good. All right, so common vicular licenses, we got Main Street Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, Dick Kelly's Farm Stand, Honey Farms, JJ's Ice Cream Shop, Jade Garden, Little Coffee Bean, Upton House of Pizza, Blackstone Valley Tech, Gasco Energy, the VFW, and Breakfast at Stephanie's.
I move that we approve the common victular licenses contingent upon meeting the requirements set forth.
Second.
And make that unanimous action? Let's just see. Okay. Very good. I was going to say, I think we usually do the Kelly's one in the spring, right?
Sometimes you do, sometimes you do it now, and that way, as long as they have everything in, it should be okay.
It's good to go. All right, thank you. All right. Motion to approve the 2020 license fee schedule. Again, I can't access that page.
Are there any changes?
Yeah, there's one change. There was one change at the bottom of the fee table. It's in red, noted as late fee. So Sandy and I talked about this. I was actually surprised to learn that the town does not have a late fee on this fee schedule. Sometimes we spend a lot of time chasing vendors to fulfill their application and submit it on time. So we're hoping that if we have a late fee, it will encourage folks to submit their applications on time.
Okay. So the fee schedule will stay the same, but we'll add this paragraph at the bottom. There will be a $100 late fee assessed for each application that is not submitted by the designated dates included in renewal packets.
I move to approve the 2020 license fee schedule, including the late fee added to it.
Second.
And make that unanimous action.
When we send out those packets, if we could just make sure that it's sort of highlighted, whether it's in red or something, because they're not used to this, so.
Yeah.
Just so that it's
Yeah.
clear to them.
Either maybe in a cover letter or an
Yeah.
attached email or something.
Great.
Okay. All right. Motion to approve one-day liquor license application.
So I will recuse myself from the discussion and deliberation because this is an application that has to do with an event that my wife and I are hosting. But I would like to answer any questions you guys have and or make a comment if they'll be from the table.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please introduce yourself to the board, sir.
I will. Brett Simon, 7 Progress Path. So my wife Tiffany and I are hosting an event, a New Year's Eve event, and we're working with the town hall to use the facility here to host the event. The event will include people from our work environments, our friends, family members, folks from the town of Upton that we work with and know and volunteer with. And the event is going to be a fundraiser, both for the South Central District of the Department of Children and Families and Services that we worked with to adopt our third child, Victor, and also for the Upton Men's Club. And there are a lot of requirements to use a public facility, and in particular the town hall, for an event like this. And so we've hired an event planner that we've been working with and that's been working with folks in the town hall to make sure that we've done everything that needs to be done to utilize the facility. The most important thing, and I did ask Chrissy Sue, who's the event planner, to sort of give me an update on the work she's been doing. So the biggest thing I think that people had questions about was insurance and liability, because there will be alcohol served at the event. So the town requires that we get $1 million of insurance per occurrence and $2 million of insurance in aggregate for an event like this, which my wife and I will be getting $1 million for individual coverage and $3 million in aggregate, which will go beyond what the town is asking for. In addition, the food vendor is fully insured. The event supply company is fully insured. The event planner has $1 million of liability insurance as well. Companies coming in, we're going to have some drapes put up for sound. They've got insurance. So the town is certainly protected from any liability in a lot of ways. We have gotten and are completing a food permit from the Board of Health to make sure that we include things like an allergen and food safe certificate from the caterer, and things are covered from the catering perspective. We're obviously here tonight looking for approval of a liquor license. Importantly, from that perspective, there's an application that has all sorts of information on it, which I think you saw or have. The bartenders, the servers will be tip certified, which is a requirement. There will be a paid police detail that my wife and I will be paying for 2 hours before the event, during, and 2 hours after the event to manage any public safety concerns, pedestrians crossing the road, what have you. The fire chief has asked us to provide a certified crowd manager in the event of any need to get folks out of the building. We would have that person in place per order of the fire chief. We paid a $20 food permit fee to the Board of Health, a $250 town hall rental fee, $132 custodial fee, a $250 security deposit, and we also have to complete a town hall rental application, which you submit after all of these other things are in place. So as you can see, it's a pretty exhaustive process. We've worked hard to go through it, and if anybody has any questions or concerns or can think of anything that we may have missed or other things that we should be doing to make sure that people understand, the nature of what we're doing and the town is protected and we're sort of crossing all our T's and dotting our I's, that's certainly our intent. We're having another meeting tomorrow. The event planner is having another meeting tomorrow with folks at the town hall to make sure that we've covered everything that's on the application, but also anything that comes out of this meeting. So I will share any other information that you might be interested in.
Very good. Your application is very thorough. I think it's a great use of the space myself. And really, the two big questions are always, is the town indemnified? And you certainly have done that. And
First question my mother asked me.
yeah. And the other question is always, are the bartenders tip certified? And we've got that too. So it looks perfect to me.
Now, the company pulling the one-day liquor license, they're indemnified also?
Yes, it's the food service provider is providing both the food as well as the tip certified servers.
So it would be William Fallon's Catering.
Exactly, and they have their own insurance, and we've provided that insurance policy information already to, I don't know if it was Kelly, it was.
I got it.
You got it, so Sandy already.
The liquor liability insurance.
Yeah, the liquor liability insurance, so they have that. So that's in addition to the insurance that we have for the event.
Okay. And the safe certifications attached to the application.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, it's, it goes without saying, anybody that knows me knows this, like if there's anything that needs to be done or that we have to do or that people feel like we've missed, like, we're not, we just want to make sure we're doing all those things. We made that clear from the get-go.
Right. Very good. I will take a motion.
Well, although I'm not in favor of alcohol in town hall, I've researched the bylaws and the town hall policy and the Mass General Law, and you conform to all of that. And I would make a motion to approve the license.
Okay. Make that majority action. Very good. It's a lot of research. I don't know how many times.
to be done, believe me, like.
It's on both sides, you know.
Right. I mean, I think I know in the recent past, it's been done once before, but I don't know if it's been done, 20 years ago, or when the time before that would have been done.
Well, it started off as, this will be great, it's in the town, it's local, it's easy. We learn, but, but it's worth it, because I think it'll be a good place to have.
Again, I think it's good use of the space. You always feel like that's, you hear people saying, I hate to even repeat this, but you hear people say it's wasted space. So,
Well, then maybe on the look-ahead topics, we could go, take a look at the town hall policy, because there's some ambiguities in there that makes it difficult to do something like this.
okay. Sounds good. All right. Agenda item 4.6, we need to open the warrant for the annual town meeting, December 10th, and to close February 7th. This is in accordance with, Derek, you had put together our yearly calendar to talk about deadlines. If you can talk about that for just a minute.
Sure. So back in June, after the end of the annual town meeting, I sent out to all the boards and committees and departments the annual town meeting calendar. So in there, talked about the special town meeting that we just had in November, the budget building process, which we're now just entered, and then as we prepare for our annual town meeting in May, the warrant review process. So I'm recommending that we open the warrant next week, on December 10th, and that we close it on February 7th. It's approximately 8 weeks, and I feel like that gives ample enough time for boards, committees, and for citizens to file citizens petitions in preparation for a May town meeting.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Brett or Maureen, do you have any questions? Okay. So this timetable look good to everybody?
So fast.
All right.
I make a motion to open the warrant for the annual town meeting, which will be held on May 7th, and we'll open the warrant effective December 10th and close it Friday, February 7th, 2020.
I'll second.
And make that unanimous action? Okay. Recognition. Does anybody have anything under recognition? Nothing? Okay. Town managers report. Derek?
Yes, I have a few things. So first, I want to start off with some good news. I continue to talk about the strong work of the department heads and the departments seeking out grants and trying to bring in additional revenue to the town to help offset some of the equipment needs and the training needs that we have, which will help reduce our operational costs over time. So I'm happy to report Chief Bradley has been working very closely with the state 911 department. I would say he was probably been negotiating with them for the better part of the last 6 months to get an equipment grant. And they just notified us today that that grant has been approved for $165,000. And that grant will go towards the acquisition of new dispatch equipment. So as you remember, the town of Upton's dispatchers don't only dispatch 911 calls for the town of Upton, but we also do that for the town of Hopedale as well. So because we have a regional PSAP, the state was willing to give us this grant award of $165,000 to be used towards upgrading our equipment, so our control panels, our radios, things of that nature. So I believe the chief said that this equipment was over 10 years old, so if we didn't get this grant at some point in the very near future, within the next year or two, we would have been going to town meeting and expecting to use free cash to upgrade this equipment. So we won't have to do that because of his hard work, so I'm really happy to report that. As far as staffing, I often talk about some of our major challenges here in town, and what I am most concerned about is continuing to identify and recruit qualified individuals to serve our community. Right now, we are currently advertising and conducting interviews for firefighter paramedics, so we have 2 vacancies right now in that position. We are advertising for a police officer position, so right now we have 1 police officer vacancy we know is going to happen. We have an impending retirement coming up here in December, so we need to fill that as quickly as possible. And then our DPW, so we have a position that was just approved at town meeting. We really need that water position for the DPW, given the encouragement of DEP, and Dennis Westgate talked a lot about that. So those are 3 positions that we're actively recruiting. Sandy's leading that effort within her HR role and working with the department heads on that. So we just came out of, I would say, 46-hour storm, I think it was. Talked to Dennis Westgate today. Everyone's home with their families right now and resting. He reported with DPW personnel Sunday afternoon at approximately 3 p.m. for storm preparations, calling contractors later on that evening. So the men and women were out plowing the better part of over 12 hours through the night, both our contractors and our DPW employees. And so, I like to talk about this because I don't, while we're all sleeping in bed, we have men and women out there working this heavy equipment, all, 1, in dangerous situations, given the storms, and 2, all night long, at 12-hour runs. So we were able to release those individuals by noontime yesterday, just to send them home for a 4-hour window so they can get quick rest and then have to report back to work between 4 and 5 yesterday afternoon, because as you all know, we had another storm that came in at 6 p.m. Those individuals worked throughout the night. We had a lot of storm cleanup. We thought things were looking good around 6 to 7 a.m., but then we had that squall that came in around 8:30, 9 o'clock, which dumped another couple inches. In total, Dennis tells me that it was about 15.5 inches of snow landed over that 46-hour period. So I want to talk about that. I'll probably talk about it a lot through the winter because I don't think folks realize that work and what it takes, the toll on the human body to be able to do that for that extended period of time. So a lot of kudos to the DPW, the staffing, the contractors in order to keep our streets clear and safe. We did have a couple of motor vehicle accidents, but overall I think things went very well. And it's certainly helpful when the schools cancel. That allows our heavy equipment to be out there for that period of time and do things in a safe manner. So happy to report that. The parking lot, as you may have recognized, thanks to Kelly, she has been working very hard. We really were hoping to have the construction of the parking lot take place during late fall. One of the holdup was we had to submit a notice of intent to Conservation Commission, given the closeness to the wetlands over there. That delayed us by the better part of 6 weeks. So we made a decision that there was no way we'd be able to put the project out to bid and then have construction take place, given the timing. And happy we didn't do that because we wouldn't expect to get 15 inches in early December anyway. So, but to Kelly's credit, she recognized that, one important factor of the reconstruction of the parking lot was to create a handicapped access point on this side of the parking lot, right on the sidewalk, and so that has been completed. We hope to keep that clear throughout the winter, so those folks who park on this side of the building have easy access to the sidewalk. Right now, the only handicapped access point is across the street, so an individual using a wheelchair or other mobility impairments would have to navigate the sidewalk across the street, around the street pole, across Warren Ave in that tricky corner on 140, and then jump the curb. So thank you to Kelly for being able to accomplish this. This is one small piece in the overall reconstruction of the parking lot that'll take place We're expecting to put out to bid this winter with the spring construction period. And then lastly, we've been working very closely with the railroad, so I just want to bring folks up to speed as to what's been happening down there. So the railroad is working with mostly federal agencies, given the preemption laws that are out there. They plan to expand the rail yard. They want to install an existing 18 spurs, and you'll see some construction over there now. They've been doing some blasting from their existing spurs close to the closest parcel of land area, closest to Maple Ave. They've already cleared that area. In order to get the spurs to that portion of their property, they have to cross the brook, which is on the property, and our forced sewer main. No, sorry, that's a gravity-fed main. Our gravity-fed main, which is running parallel to the brook. So obviously, we have concerns with that. We've been working with the railroad. We've been working with state DEP on the brook issue. And we've been working with our engineers to look at the sewer main. So we don't know what's going to happen with the sewer main yet. Right now, what would happen is, their plan is to cover the brook. So they want to cover the brook, and then that would put an additional 10 feet of cover on top of our already sewer main of about 8 to 10 feet in depth. So when it's all said and done, our sewer main could be approximately 20 feet deep, which would create problems if there was some backup, or if we had access to, we would have to have a manhole of 20 feet in depth, and that would, in my opinion, would create some concerns to have an individual go to that depth. So we're going to work with them to try to resolve that issue. The last issue that they're working on is they are proposing to construct a $10 million facility to store chemicals. They have a laundry list of chemicals that they already bring on the site. This would actually be a safer environment in which they would offload the chemicals into these storage containers, and then 18-wheelers would come in, and then they would then transfer the chemicals from the storage units over to the 18-wheelers. So again, we are working with them. That's a construction control process where they have engineers that have designed it. Engineers will oversee the construction process. Although they don't have to, they are willing to work with our building commissioner on that, so we have some eyes on the construction of that. They're working with the fire chief on the MSDSs, so those are the safety data sheets that come with any chemical, and it's required by federal law to provide those to the local community, so the fire chief is working with them. So the long and short of it, they're expanding their footprint. They're going to be bringing in more work to that site. There's limited oversight we have on it, but they are willing to work with us. I think the only outstanding issue that we have any input on really at this point is the sewer main. So we all agreed that we'll meet again probably in the February time period after Ty and Bond finishes our infrastructure analysis, which is taking place right now. And then at that point, we'll have more information as to which direction we think we need to proceed regarding the protection of that sewer main, or maybe the possible relocation of that sewer main.
Two quick questions. Do we know what the condition is of that sewer main now? I know Dennis has been in the past, and he's talked about, I think it's one of the sewer mains in town that has infiltration issues. I think he said in rain events it takes in twice the amount that it would on a dry day.
I believe it's a 16-inch clay pipe, so they no longer use clay piping, so it's one of the oldest pipes we have in town. So there are a couple different options, I think, and you're right, that does have the INI, the infiltration, which is a problem. So folks that don't know, that INI is basically saying that water is getting into our sewer main, and it's reducing the potential capacity that we have in that main, because outside influences, groundwater is getting inside that, and then ultimately that groundwater is getting to our sewer treatment plant, and it's making our sewer treatment plant work more than it really should. So yeah, that sewer main does have INI issues. We talked about one idea would be to just sleeve it, so you eliminate any INI issues by sleeving it, but and you give it some more stability by sleeving it. Doesn't solve the depth problem that we would have, and it would then reduce the capacity, because you're making the diameter of the pipe narrow by sleeving it. So it's something we threw out there, but given all the construction in town, with the Pulte project is now going to be 139 units, which is going to be tied into our public sewer system. The Lobisa project, which is on Main Street, here has 44 units tied into the sewer main. We're now in conversations with FAFID in the Governor's Landing project, which they expect to tie up to 170 units into the public sewer system. So these are all going to have a major impact on our capacity, and that's one of our main sewer lines going into the sewer treatment plant. So these are all things that have been brought up, that have been discussed, but right now we're kind of just pausing, waiting for Ty and Bond to come back to us and give us their expert engineering opinion on what the best course of action will be for that sewer main.
My other question was, construction projects like that, let's say the Spurs, or if they're going to do a $10 million construction project, is the town compensated via a pilot agreement or assessments?
So we'll definitely be able to tax that building and any personal property. So the real estate taxes will go up, and the personal property that would be on that site. And Bill's here from the Board of Assessors, and I know we've talked a lot about how the best way to tax that property. But we think with a $10 million project, at least I think, with a $10 million project would bring in probably about another $70,000 worth of new tax revenue. I don't know if Bill agrees with that, but that's kind of my ballpark assessment.
Did you say 100?
A $10 million project, about $70,000 in new real estate tax.
170,000, $17 per thousand, right?
Okay.
Bill, you're not supposed to argue with the town.
But that, I was just thinking, so the assessment would be $10 million, because it would be a $10 million construction project, that's what I was thinking.
Well, presumably, I mean, that's one of the ways you would assess property is by how much it would cost to replace it. So, that'd be a starting point. I don't, we have to do a lot more work.
Right.
But if it was just a $10 million project and that was the assessment, then it would be.
It was assessed that, right, 170,000.
You know, and then there'd be equipment associated with that, which would be personal property, so, yeah. It would be a benefit to the town.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious with the preemptive status, how that would, how it may impact that tax structure.
Yeah, it's definitely all taxable. That's all taxable.
Very good. Maureen or Brett, do you have any questions?
No.
Two quick things. One is, you know if the railroad is planning to wait for us to have a determination on burying the sewer main? Do we have agreement to do that or not? Because I know that they basically can, they're working very quickly there. So I don't necessarily, my fear would be that they aren't really waiting for anybody because they feel like they have the right to do what they want with the property.
So there's a couple of things. So they plan to break ground in December for the building construction. So that's kind of phase one for their rail yard expansion. So that'll break down. They said they don't plan on doing anything with the sewer brook issue until sometime in late summer, early fall of 2020, because they're going to focus on the construction. But we do have agreement to meet in late winter once we get the tie and bond assessment back. And that's really what's going to, at least from the town's perspective, that's what's going to drive some of our decision-making on what's going to come out of that report from tie and bond. So we do have a verbal agreement that they're not going to do anything on that. They also have to go, in order to cover the brook, they have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers. The good thing is the Army Corps of Engineers is a federal entity, and they have to, even though the railroad has preemption with state and local rules and regulations, they don't have preemption with federal rules and regulations. So they're going to have to abide by the Army Corps of Engineers, whatever they're required. But the indication I received from Mass DEP is they believe that the Army Corps of Engineers will approve the covering of that brook. They already have an agreement in place that they're going to have to just replicate the wetlands, and they've already identified 2 locations to do the replication at, and one's in Grafton, I think one's in Hopedale.
And just to be clear, are they literally just covering the brook, or are they putting a culvert and then?
They're gonna culvert it and then cover the brook, yeah. So there'll still be a stream underneath, yeah.
That's it.
And then I guess just now looking at the timetable, if the tie-in bond report isn't, it sounds like a lot of this is going to happen after the warrant is closed, assuming that we may have a capital project here as far as either relocating or rebuilding that sewer main, we wouldn't be able to accomplish that in May.
I don't think we'll have any agreement, even, I would say, in the first quarter of the calendar year 2020. Hopefully, we have an agreement sometime in the second quarter of 2020. So I think realistically, if we had to seek funding, we'd be seeking funding at the November special town meeting. That being said, the representative from the Grafton-Upton Railroad also is a town administrator in a community in the South Shore. So he totally can appreciate town meeting process and what it takes to get authorization for funding. So I don't expect them to try to advance any of this unless, without our approvals.
So it's at least their construction project, that part of the project would be at least a year away.
Yeah, I would say they're probably aiming more for the fall to start that construction project. But again, if we said if our decision is to relocate that sewer main, I know that they would be willing to wait for us to relocate that sewer main. And then, first seek authorization, then relocate it. And just remember, we have an easement, which I meant to say, we have an easement for that sewer main. So they just can't prevent us access there. I mean, they could cover it over and maintain the access there, but they can't prevent the town from accessing that sewer main.
Complicated. All right. Any other questions? We have anything under new business? Nope. Okay. Look ahead topics. Have anything just yet? Public comment. Do we have any public comment? Yes, sir. Could you please come forward?
My name's Francis Paul. I live on Mendon Street. I've been there for will be 50 years come April. And I've come to you people because something's got to be done in the taxes. The money's just run out. I took some out of my 401 because I had to. I was over 70 and a half. I've been using that for my taxes, but I've been doing that for 12 years. I'm 82 years old, and the money's just run out. I see in the paper some of these other towns are offering $1,000. That would be a great help. You people have a work program, but at 80-something years old, I don't want to work. I'll be 83 in January. And I've been retired for, it'll be 21 years, the 9th of January. And something's got to be done. I tried to do something with the town assessors, but I got nowhere.
You said that you see in other towns there's $1,000.
Yes. In fact, I had a thing right here to you. It's right out of the Milton paper. And the other one is the town crier. That's Mendon.
Okay.
The work program?
I don't know if it's senior tax relief. I think I do see some of the towns have senior tax relief, but I'm not sure. Wilbur Senior
But I
Tax
don't
Relief
know,
Program
what
application.
the thing's maybe 75, I've had no kids, I understand your school is your biggest thing, but my kids have been out of school for over 40 years.
So I'm a member of the Board of Assessors.
Yeah.
And have you come into our office and talked?
I haven't come in, but I had the two come down and look at my property. I don't think they know what they're doing, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, that would have been me, but that's... So in any case, we do have several programs for seniors. So if you come to the office, we can see, at least we can see if you qualify for any of those.
Tell me what day and I'll come.
Well, the office is open
8 a.m.
8 a.m. And 8 to 4, except for Tuesday, it's open 8 to 6. And then on Friday, it's 8 to 12. And it's generally staffed full-time, so it's probably a good idea to call. Just be sure that Tracy's going to be there. And she'd be more than happy to help you evaluate.
Well, I gotta get some help somewhere, because as I say, it's either sell my property or that I've been there for 50 years.
No.
I mean, the money is gone. Last year, people went up on about 8% on my property. I get a 2.8% increase. How the hell am I ever gonna get ahead? I can't. I need some help somewhere,
Yeah. So
you know?
come on down to the office and
All
we'll
right.
see what we can do.
I'll come down.
I know we have the senior work-off.
We have the senior work-off. Have we ever instituted the tax relief program?
We have there are several different options for seniors.
Well, I know some of them are the exemptions
Yeah,
and the work program, but there was another one too for the tax relief. And, I think we did up to $1,500
When I came here
in
50
Hopkins.
years ago, the tax rate in town was $758. And
Is
now
that
I paid over
a local option
$6,000.
type thing?
It's a local option, yes, and it comes off of your, it comes out of your overlay.
So, come and see us, because I'm not familiar with that. And it's certainly something that I'd personally be willing to bring to town meeting. So we did recently at one of the town meetings adjust the
exemption?
the COLA, so that at least that helped a little. So in any case, I can tell you that Tracy goes out of her way
Oh, yeah.
to go and find all of the things that we currently have. If you're aware of other things that the town can adopt, certainly be willing to personally consider that. You by no means the only person who is experiencing...
No, I'm sure I'm not.
steps, but-
You know, maybe I've lived too long, 21 years I've been retired. I think I'm still in pretty good health, but...
One other suggestion I would have is our Council on Aging, Janice Nowicki, has a great group or a great range of connections to various services that might be able to help, whether it's with, Meals on Wheels and other things that maybe it's not directly related to your taxes, but it's something that can support you financially, just so that you sort of get as much support as you can, because I know there are things available that the town has access to.
Well, I try not to bother anybody. I try to, always with myself.
Things like that. Well, it's never a bother to take care of
Just
people
come to a point
that have taken care of this town for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't ever feel bad about asking. We're here to help you.
You get everything you're eligible for.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
available to you.
the assessors, I don't know who that was, but there was two people come down to my property, and I swear they don't know what they're talking about. I don't know. They want me to do something else, they deny everything. But my property, I don't actually have property on the street. I don't know how the hell, they can say that, but that's what they say. It's a right of way, it's not my property.
He can file for an exemption after the real estate bills go off January 1st, correct?
Abatement.
No, an exemption, senior exemption.
The exemptions, I think, have been due already. But I'm not 100% sure. Again, I think the easiest thing would be...
Right, we're not going to solve it here, but definitely there's a lot of resources that we have available to you that we want to offer you and to anybody else in town, because a lot of times it's just a gap between what people know and what's available. So we just want to make sure you know every type of support that you can get.
Yeah, well, I know there's
21
lots
years is a
of-
long time to be retired, and you probably got another 20 to go, so we got to do what we can for you.
I hope so.
Yeah, but there are a lot of things available, not just related to taxes and assessment, but things like food and fuel reimbursement and all those things. And I don't know what's the best way to connect with you to make sure that you don't leave and not get what you need. So-
Well, my best way is my cell phone, 774-573-1466.
And the people are here in town to help you out, so certainly in the short run, if you can make an appointment to meet with either Bill, actually Tracy would be his best point of contact, so Tracy in the assessor's office. You may get lucky, maybe Bill will be there as well. Hopefully Bill can...
Well, I think Bill is the guy that come down the house.
Yeah, no, it was Jim and I.
Okay.
And, we do what we believe is right.
Well,
Good. But in the short run, if we can get you in touch with Tracy, that's the next step. And then as Brett had mentioned, the next step after that really is to have you touch base with Janice. So we'll reach out to you, or I can reach out to you and make sure that you have the contact information, the people you need to talk to, and the folks are here to help you. So again, if there are some monies, and maybe that's something we can talk about as a look-ahead topic, is the senior tax relief. If that would be a bylaw change?
No. But it's usually run by the Council on the Aging. We ran a senior work-off program through the Council on the Aging and the tax relief program. And then the exemptions will run through the assessor's office. I thought they had until March to file for an exemption. I gotta look.
I'll go see the girl there,
We'll have Tracy give you a call.
okay,
And then you can set up an appointment with her, then you'll know exactly what, okay?
all right.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for stopping in.
Mr. Pond, sorry, do you have a pen? Do you have a piece of paper?
I have it right here.
617-275-9916.
Yeah,
That's my phone number, Brett.
yeah. Okay,
Give me a call if you need anything.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, public comment. All right. Any other topics? Otherwise, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Make that unit, I'm sorry.
Sorry, my name's Norman, I work over at Precision Collision Center.
Yep.
So I'm here to get our dealership license, class 2.
Approved. We did it.
We'll make sure that
We need
they...
the actual physical license. I don't think we'll actually have the physical license.
Decision was on.
Precision Auto Center?
No, Precision Collision Center.
We haven't done a,
We got the letter and everything, and filled up all the requirements.
I think,
Precision Collision.
right,
Yes.
which,
Is your email address PCC Auto Body?
Yes.
Okay, well, you look like you're approved, 508-816-4180. Is that your phone number?
That's fine.
Okay, well then I think you're in
You're all
good shape,
set.
because we approved your license.
I guess I didn't hear you guys the first time, I'm sorry.
No worries. What make sure you're taken care of.
what is your street address?
75 High Street.
You're in good shape.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank you, we were worried for a while.
Thanks for double checking. No reason to walk out wondering.
Yeah, exactly. Have a good one.
I guess that's, yeah, good night now. That's the only question, I guess, is it says
Precision Auto.
precision collision version.
Yeah.
Right. All right, back to that motion.
I move that we adjourn. Did you have anything else, Andy?
Second?
My name is Philippe Lingus. I live at 5 William Street. I was, actually, I'm here today I'm in Boy Scouts, and I'm actually here fulfilling a requirement for one of my merit badges, and I felt since I was here, I would ask you guys if you know of any
potential projects that I could do for my Eagle project, because I'm approaching that and I was looking for something to do for that.
So many ideas.
The Land Stewardship Committee has had other Eagle Scouts do trail structures and such. If you think that's something that interests you, you could come to our next meeting and we could talk to you about what kind of opportunities that exist right now. If one of them interests you, we can probably go forward. We meet, I think, our next meeting, and confirm this, but it's, I believe, Thursday night.
It is, in front of Thursday at 7:30.
At 7:30. Here, downstairs. First floor, so it's small, around 2 minutes.
Do we have anything on the Board of Selectmen that we could steer him towards? That would be something that he could do for an Eagle Scout project that he could do on behalf of the BLS?
All right.
But the only thing that comes to mind, from the board's perspective is we've had ideas floating around for the last 6-8 months or so about a dog park. I mean, I know we don't have an area of land that's been earmarked, but also I've been told that it's very overgrown trying to get up to the Stephens Farm property. So I don't know if that's something that Land Stewardship may be able to take a look at that. I know where the parking is across the street, trying to get up that hill, I think it's getting very overgrown, I've heard people say.
Well, actually, I was there a week ago, and it looks pretty good to me now.
Okay.
But I can tell you there are muddy areas where trail structures like boardwalks would be a real benefit there. So,
Do you think that would be able to be done during the winter though? Because I do have to have it done for February.
that would be,
This February?
Yes.
Have you started it yet?
No,
You're gonna have a problem.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have a lot of good
you know
help.
what? That being said,
Not to discourage you, but
I do have a slight extension, I think till the end of February, but I feel like that doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
it'll be tough. It will all depend on, I mean, we certainly, the structures can be built in the winter, as long as you're not fighting snow. So come see us on Thursday, we'll talk it through.
All right.
And in the meantime, if I can think of anything else with any other organizations.
I was gonna say, Bill, maybe you could, measure and make the structures or make them on site or something to.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, the Eagle, the Boy Scouts have requirements as well.
Well, that's what I mean, right, so there's.
So, it may be a negotiation with whoever is approving the project. But yeah, that might be something that the structures could be built and ready to install. That would certainly work for us.
I know I've sat in on a couple of the Eagle Scout border reviews, and typically they do build them off-site. So you can build your structure at home in a garage, it's just you need a lot of muscle and manpower to get it onto a truck and out into the woods where it needs to
Which I don't
live.
think would be too difficult.
I think I just solved the problem. The Board of Health is gonna need a new shed.
That's
To
right.
put trash bags in,
A big shed.
a big shed.
Shed.
Maybe we could put a big, nice shed next to the library or over by the DPW. Just saying. Really, I mean, I'm not kidding, right? Like,
Yeah, I think
that's like the size.
shed they're looking for.
I mean, are they using the shed next to the library now?
Right, they're looking
Well, I
for
mean-
storage space the size of one of those Connex containers that go in the back of an 18-wheeler. So it'd be a big shed.
What is it, like a 40-yard?
So that they want to go from an 8x10 shed to a 40x20 shed?
Well, I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's like, you see the metal containers across the street at Tommy Thompson's?
Something to think about.
Something big like that. That's what they're looking for.
But you know, kids are always looking for Eagle Scout projects, so that actually is a good segue. It's something we could at least put the idea out there. I'm not saying that would be something you'd want to undertake, but.
Maybe we could do a phase 1 Board of Health shed that was double the size of what they have now. And then we'll work on the quadruple the size with the next Eagle Scout project.
Modular.
We'll come up with something for you.
See, Bill.
Okay, so start with us on Thursday.
All right.
Because actually, Steve mentioned there are a couple of places in Stephens that could clearly benefit from some boardwalks and such. And that would actually be something that we could build modular pieces and then deliver it. The installation would go pretty quick.
Yeah. Good. Good idea. All
So
right.
I look forward to seeing you.
Good job. Get it done, you can do it. Also, I know I'll put a lot of effort into it.
You will. It's hard work to do.
That's right. All right. And that motion to adjourn? We've got that?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
And make that unanimous action.